How we doing? How we doing? This is Destination Denver, Colorado, and today I'm asked all the time, Jimmy, is it the madness of Denver I want or the college cool of Fort Collins? We're here to compare two of Colorado's most amazing cities, and we're starting right now. All right, this is Destination Denver, Colorado. I'm your host, Jimmy Everett, and listen, if you're interested in learning all the ins and outs, pros and cons to the Denver Metro and Colorado Front Range, this is definitely the channel for you. And as much as I love getting a little creative here on camera, I'm also a licensed mortgage broker covering the entire state of Colorado and team with some of the state's most talented realtors. And we are helping people move here each and every day. So the number and email you see on your screen, know that I am always the person, answer your phone calls, answer your texts, answer your emails there, when and if you need me. Now that we're done with that fun-filled stuff, let's get to what we're here for, and that is moving to Denver or moving to Fort Collins. Which is right for you? So Colorado is not one of those states that has multiple large cities. Denver is by far its largest, second most being Colorado Springs, which is roughly an hour to an hour and a half to as much as 2 hours south of Denver, depending on traffic and depending on what part of Denver or Colorado Springs you're going to. So Fort Collins to the north, roughly an hour and a half, again, variable depending on traffic, north of Denver, is often a comparative city, one that people will talk about. Do I want to be in Denver? Do I want a smaller town, but not necessarily close to Denver? And that's why more often than not, when I'm having conversations with people, it tends to be, which is better? Colorado Springs in Denver or Fort Collins in Denver? So realistically, you have to start with, do you want the Denver Powerhouse? Denver has a population of 715,000 people. The metro area has a population of over 3.2 million. Think big city hustle meets mountain backdrop. You've got the major industries. You've got tech, aerospace, healthcare, government. You've got big universities, major sports, concerts, traffic, and headaches. You've got light rails that are helpful, but you're still going to have moments on I-25 or on I-70 where you're frustrated as can be. Now, Fort Collins is a small city with a big personality. 175,000 people, much smaller, much slower, and it's an outdoor, community-driven, and bike-friendly as hell type of town. When we talk about the economy, we're talking about education, we're talking about tech startups, and enough breweries to fill a pool. And in Fort Collins, by far, CSU, Colorado State University, runs the show. It is a college town through and through. So because of that, you can expect like that college town upbeat nature to the town of Fort Collins. And I will say, while Fort Collins is a bit spread out, it is way easier to get around. Just be prepared to drive. And that's not to say that you're taking the light rail or an Uber everywhere in Denver, but Fort Collins is definitely car driven. So comparing the economy and job market, in Denver, think massive, think high paying, think competitive. Think employers like Google, Lockheed, Amazon, all of the big players are going to be in and around Denver, maybe as far south getting into Greenwood Village in the Denver Tech Center, or slightly up north towards Broomfield, but you're going to have a lot of options there, although highly competitive for those high-paying jobs. Your average salary in Denver as of the making of this video sits between $75,000 to $85,000 a year, certainly plenty of people making more than that. Now, Fort Collins, you're thinking less corporate, more local. Not to say that they don't have their chains or their large corporations there in Fort Collins, but you do definitely get more of a local feel there. You've got places like Otterbox, New Belgium Brewing, of course, breweries famous in Fort Collins, New Belgium, one of the largest. And then certainly Colorado State University is a massive employer for that community. Your average salary is a bit lower in Fort Collins, I think pretty naturally, but so is your blood pressure from what I've heard. And one item that I did find interesting is that remote work seems far more prominent in the Denver metro area than it does in Fort Collins. Not to say that people don't have remote work in Fort Collins, you just hear it more in Denver. I guess they figure if you're gonna live in a beautiful town like Fort Collins, you gotta get out of your house, you gotta go see it. In Denver, you can just stay in your house and get on your laptop. From a cost of living standpoint, I mean, there's really no comparison. Denver is going to be more expensive across the board. You're going to pay more for housing, you're going to pay more for buying a house, you're going to pay more for rent, you're going to tend to pay more money for groceries, and you're going to pay more money for going out. That's not to say that Fort Collins is necessarily cheap for going out and things of that nature, but you're going to get far better deals on rent or purchasing a home in Fort Collins than you might in Denver. The bottom line from the conversations I've had is that Denver is great for that career accelerator. If you're looking for certain positions, a lot of people move to the Denver metro area for that job. Where Fort Collins is kind of a place where quality of life and value comes together. So the people who might be able to afford living in Fort Collins on that job, they like that, again, that slower lifestyle. Maybe your quality of life is a bit higher because it's not so cumbersome. And I don't want to overstate this. We're talking about kind of the heart of Denver versus Fort Collins. As you get into the suburbs of Denver, you're certainly going to get to slower communities. But if Denver's the hub, if you've got to get in and out of Denver, if Denver's going to play a big factor in your life, that's really what we're comparing these two about. Now we're talking about housing in Fort Collins versus Denver. Certainly Denver is going to give you more options. You know, you have the city, you have skyscrapers. If you want to live that, high rise condo life, you can get into some single family homes, you can get farther into the suburbs. But if we're talking about, for instance, luxury living in Denver, you're looking at some neighborhoods like Cherry Creek, which is one of the most walkable communities in all of Denver. You're talking about Wash Park, which is a neighborhood surrounding Wash Park itself, one of the most popular outdoor spots in all of the Denver metro area. And then you've got my personal favorite neighborhood, Highlands, which is not necessarily luxury by any means. There's certain areas that are very nice, but the Highlands, to me, is one of the most walkable communities in all of Denver, located just west of town there, and just a lot of areas where you can walk out your door and within a couple blocks be surrounded by restaurants and coffee shops and all of the good things that you equate with walkability. Young professionals, a lot of times when I'm talking to them, they'll look at communities like Rhino or Five Points, which is River North here in Denver. A lot of new construction there. Again, a lot of walkability, a lot of things for people to do. Very nearby is Lower Downtown, or Lodo. That was really built around the time the Colorado Rockies baseball team got here. Coors Field was built there in the late 90s. Now, Lodo is, to me, more of a going out. It's where some restaurants, bars, nightclubs, things of that nature are. There are certainly some condos, some apartments down in that area, some great places, but it's not really a place where you see a lot of people living, certainly not from a family standpoint, Tennessee, but a lot of younger folks will enjoy being down there because, it's fun. It's just a great place to go out. And then Cap Hill, to me, the quintessential walking neighborhood of Denver, located near the Capitol. Again, a lot of restaurants, a lot of shops, city parks, all of those things. And then you get into more of the suburban life. You get into communities like a Central Park. You get south of Denver into Littleton, and farther south into Highlands Ranch. Highlands Ranch being like the quintessential suburb of Denver. And this is kind of another thing. When you're talking about Denver, you're going to start talking about these suburbs, these surrounding areas. Again, 700,000 plus people live in Denver proper. 3.2 million live in the metro area. So when we look at Fort Collins, if you're thinking luxury, you're going to look at Fossil Lake Ranch. You're going to look at Eagle Ranch. What can I say? They like their ranches there. If you're looking for a younger vibe, people tend to tell me that Old Town is a great place to look, as is Midtown. Got ranches, we got towns. You getting a feel for what Fort Collins is all about? Because I dig it. And then really family friendly, you get to West Chase, and you also get to Observatory Village, which is one of my favorite neighborhoods there in Fort Collins. Now, the obvious difference between Denver and Fort Collins from a housing standpoint, especially again, if we're talking about kind of the heart of Denver, is the population. You've got the high rises, you've got the big condo buildings, if that's your jam. All of these communities, Denver and Fort Collins, are going to have some great slower neighborhoods if you like. You can be a little more urban suburban in Denver than you can necessarily in Fort Collins, but once you get into suburban living, you're going to see Fort Collins is primarily single family homes. Denver certainly has a great mix of that. But if you want more hustle and bustle, that's going to be Denver all day. Education, there's going to be some great options in both areas. Among the more popular in Denver is the Cherry Creek School District, basically state renowned, and Douglas County School District. Not to say that those are the only two, but those are very well respected and typically highly rated school districts in and around Denver. For higher education in Denver, you've got a lot of options. You've got the University of Denver, you've got the University of Colorado and their Denver campus, you've got Metro State, so plenty of different options in and around Denver. Also, plenty of community colleges to choose from. Now in Fort Collins, the Poudre School District is elite, and that's no fluff. I mean, the Poudre School District is routinely rated among the state's best. They take education seriously in Fort Collins. And then once you're done with high school, I mean, if your parents want to keep you local, they're going to talk you into Colorado State University. I mean, why would you go anywhere else? Great veterinarian program, some fantastic programs there at Colorado State. But if we're talking higher education, that's going to be the main course. So folks tend to stay in Fort Collins and go to Colorado State, or they head down to Boulder and make enemies of Colorado State by going to the University of Colorado. And that rivalry is fun, I will tell you that. So I will say this, overall, and this is mainly based on feedback, if you're looking for quality of school, Fort Collins tends to have an edge over Denver proper. But the thing about Denver is that you then have so many more options. So there's certainly great quality to be found within Denver. I think just that focal point of education in Fort Collins gives it a slight edge over Denver proper. But I know enough about this rent and schools and all this stuff. We want to know about having fun. How are we going to compare these two? And listen, I mean, this is a big difference. You're talking about multiple millions of people who want to get out and have a good time, and less than 200,000 people that want to get out and have a good time. So there's going to be some variance. With Denver, you have the city, you have the big concerts, you have the big crowds, you have the big ticket prices, you have every pro sports team. You've got the Broncos in football, you've got the Nuggets in basketball, you've got the Avs in hockey, you've got the Rockies in minor league, major league baseball. I joke every time. You've got professional soccer, professional lacrosse, all of the things. We even have an arena football team now. I mean, we've made it. Restaurants. Denver is one of the most challenging cities to open and operate a restaurant, and people will still knock our food overall, but I think that you're starting to see a lot of international food, you're seeing craft cocktails, you're seeing people up their game because they can't just live to a minimum standard. Their restaurant is either good or it's out. Now, when it comes to Fort Collins, you get a little more of that small town feel. Fort Collins is known for its breweries. Colorado certainly is as a whole, but Fort Collins is the epicenter of breweries. There's one on every corner, it feels like. And there you'll have, you'll still have music venues, but they tend to be smaller. They tend to be a bit more intimate, which I don't know about you, I can dig that. And while this exists in Denver, there's more of that outdoorsy paradise. There's a lot of trails, a lot of parks. There's just an emphasis on doing some things outdoors. They don't necessarily have a lot of the elements that you would expect to see in a Denver, where they don't have a ton of massive music halls or multiple museums and multiple theaters and all of these things. Fort Collins has a lot to do. Downtown Fort Collins is one of my absolute favorite places on earth. It's just a cool place. Main Street Disneyland, modeled after it, if that tells you anything. It's also one of those communities a bit more green than Denver. It's one of those communities where, man, you want to get outside in Denver, you really want to get outside in Fort Collins. And Horsetooth Reservoir, I just have to mention Horsetooth when I'm talking about Fort Collins, because if you want to get out, Horsetooth, just a great place to go boating, swimming, fishing, you name it. My dad always gets pissed when he goes fishing there because boats drive by, but that's neither here nor there. An excellent place to check out. Now, weather. Denver overall, again, we always talk about you get all four seasons, relatively mild. You'll have a sunny and 65, and then you'll have a blizzard all within an hour. But that's Colorado, and that's really the Front Range. You will tend in Denver to have more intense storms, and you will tend to have hotter summers. Fort Collins, on the other hand, is slightly milder when it comes to weather changes. Certainly you'll see it, but they're not quite as aggressive as you see there in Denver. I think a lot of that just has to do with being on the Front Range and those weather patterns coming right over the mountains there. And what kind of surprised me is that while Fort Collins will get some snow, it doesn't tend to get dumped on as much as Denver does. So overall, not quite as hot in the summer, not quite as cold, or at least not as snowy as the winters here in Denver, a bit more mild either way, but not a huge difference. I mean, again, you're talking about two areas that are roughly an hour and a half apart drive time. You're not going to see a huge climate shift between the two. Now, diving into kind of community and culture of these areas, Denver is far more of a mixing pot. It's far more transient. It's far more diverse, fast-moving than what you would expect in Fort Collins. Again, 3 million people, you're going to tend to have a lot of different personalities and histories. So you got this mix. You've got, your Colorado natives, and we love to like hold up signs and preface, if I can get my mouth to work, that were that. But then you have, a lot of folks who have moved to Denver from other states, from other cities that are here, new lifers, and they're here to, they're extroverted, they're entrepreneurs, they're getting into business, they're trying to build new networks. So you've got this mixing pot effect in Denver that probably didn't exist 10 or 15 years ago. Now, Fort Collins on the other side, it's a bit more tight-knit. It's a bit more local. It's a bit more Colorado. So it feels more like a town that remembers your name, probably your coffee order. It's just more intimate than a big city like Denver. So it's got this, this big community energy, and it's got this small town loyalty. It's a very cool vibe. Now, oftentimes when people are thinking about moving somewhere, they want to know kind of what's the future of that town. And certainly you're going to see more skyscrapers get built in Denver. You're going to see that it's growing fast, that they're going to expand the light rail in certain areas. I mean, Denver and their surrounding suburbs continue to be a thriving metro and a growing metropolitan area. And so along with that, you see home prices tend to be on the rise, and that's kind of a statewide and certainly on a Colorado Front Range area. But you're seeing these home prices rise, and you're seeing urban sprawl expand, especially east. Obviously, we run out of room if we try to build too many houses west. We run into the Rocky Mountains, but we have plenty of room east, and you're seeing that. You're seeing more and more communities be built out that direction. Whereas Fort Collins, it feels like there's more growth with intention there. Again, they don't have to worry about hundreds of thousands of people moving to the area. So there's a slower pace to it. There's more green space, and without a doubt, there are fewer cranes in the sky. So in the end, the question is, where should you live? Well, when I'm talking to people and having this conversation, what I tend to find is this. If you are climbing the corporate ladder, if you need nightlife and events and stimulation, if you're okay trading cost for opportunity, technically or typically, Denver is your scene for that. If you're looking more lively, more go, more upbeat, Denver is going to be the city. Whereas people tend to choose Fort Collins if they want community, they want calm, they want really good schools. They're into bikes, they're into beers, they're into backyards, they're into that chill energy that Fort Collins brings. And as one friend told me, you live in a community where you like knowing your neighbor and you like knowing your bartender. Now here's the beautiful thing about the Colorado Front Range, and here's the beautiful thing between Denver and Fort Collins. There is something somewhere in between. Might not even be one of these two cities, might be an area in between. I have a lot of folks who just want to take advantage of being able to go to both Fort Collins and Denver. So they live in a Longmont, a Lafayette, a Louisville, you name it. And that's a perfect opportunity for us to have a conversation about it. Where do you want to call home? And that's why you should up my number and email on the screen. Know that I am always the person. Answer phone calls, answer your texts, answer your emails. There, when and if you need me. This is Destination Denver, Colorado. I am your host, Jimmy Everett. That was moving to Denver or to Fort Collins, Colorado. Which is right for you? Until I see you next time, peace.